Welcome to another episode of Off the Rak. I'm Walt Rakowich, and I'm grateful to have you here as we explore what it means to practice transformative leadership. John Foley is no stranger to high-stakes performance. As a former lead solo pilot for the Blue Angels, he mastered precision, trust, and excellence at 500 miles per hour, flying just 18 inches apart from his teammates. A 6-time top 10 carrier pilot, a Marine instructor pilot, and even a Top Gun film pilot, John exemplifies what it means to perform at the highest levels. After his distinguished naval career, John took his expertise in elite performance and leadership to the business world, earning degrees at Stanford Graduate School of Business, the Naval War College, and Stanford's International Policy Studies program. He's since become a sought-after speaker and advisor, helping Fortune 500 companies like Google, Microsoft, BMW, and Coca-Cola apply the same high-trust, high-performance principles that made him an elite pilot. John's best-selling book, Fearless Success Beyond High Performance, unlocks the secrets of sustaining excellence under pressure, blending operational precision with his glad to be here mindset, a philosophy rooted in gratitude, purpose, and being fully present. Through his Glad to Be Here Foundation, he's also donated to charities worldwide, proving that leadership is about more than just success, it's about impact. So join us for a conversation with John Foley, a visionary leader who knows what it takes to soar beyond high performance. Hey, John, I just want you to know, great to have you on. So I understand that your call sign as a pilot is Gucci.
Yes.
I got to hear the backstory about that.
Okay. All right. Well, let me give you the first clue that you don't get to pick it. And if you like it, it doesn't stick usually. All right. So all fighter pilots, we get call signs, and you do this for airborne reasons, but it also builds camaraderie, teamwork. It's really a special thing. But, most fighter pilots, and you saw in the movie Top Gun, you'll have people like Iceman and Maverick or Hitman, something cool like that. Well, no fighter pilot wants Gucci, okay? But here's what you do something stupid, your teammates will remind you. So one day, we had just finished flying the movie Top Gun. I did some of the real flying in that movie. And we were up at a place called Fallon, Nevada, which is in the middle of the boonies. And after we had done some sorties, the instructors go, hey, let's go out. Let's go out on the town. And everybody else shows up in the lobby like Tom Cruise is dressed, okay? Jeans, T-shirt, fighter pilot jacket. And the reason Tom Cruise and all the actors wore that is because that's how most fighter pilots dress. Well, I didn't show up that way. I show up like you, wearing a button-down shirt, but I had on this thin black leather tie. Well, that wasn't cool even in the 80s. And my team members look at me, they go, what is that? That's Gucci. And I flinch. And once you flinch, they know they got you. So it's stuck.
So it's stuck, and that's what you're named now.
Yeah, and I've been trying for years to change it. And you really can't change your call sign because it's what your teammates and your peers, and they should match, though. Now, here's the deal. I was also living on a sailboat and driving an Alfa Romeo at the time, too. So I gave them lots of ammo.
That is just great. That is what an awesome story. So John Gucci Foley,
yep.
You got to know something about me, too. I once had to face my fear, which is nothing to you, but my son asked me to paraglide with him when we were in Switzerland.
Okay? I've done it.
And
yep.
I kept looking up and I kept thinking, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. I cannot do it. He forced me up there.
Yeah.
And we paraglided down several thousand feet.
Yeah.
And so I did it, but I'm not sure I would ever do it again. So you're not
well,
flying.
First off, Walt, was that in San Moritz? Did you go off the ski slope? Where were you doing that?
It was no, it was near Interlaken.
Interlaken, yes. Yeah. I've been to both those places. I've actually done that paragliding off the ski slope with skis over San Moritz, and you land on the lake.
Oh my gosh, I didn't land on the lake, but I got to tell you, it scared the hell out of me. And
yeah, that's fun.
Anyway, so you you've jumped out of helicopters before. You skied down mountains out of helicopters. You're definitely an adrenaline junkie. I'm not that way. Did you ever encounter a fear?
Oh, sure.
In doing it?
Oh, tons of times. I like to differentiate, Walt, between scared and being afraid. And to me, there's a big difference. All right. So fear, to me, you watch the next time you feel fear, and I've felt it also, it'll feel like a force. I suggest a force coming at you, something out of your control. That's why it causes that stuckness in us. I think scared's different. See, scared is those little hairs that stand up on the back of your neck. Scared says, hey, I'm not going to walk down a dark alley late at night. Or scared says, hey, I'm not going to paraglide again, right? That's good. Trust that stuff, right? And that's because it's coming from you and you're more aware. So I'm scared all the time. To me, being scared is being on the edge. You're alert, you're mindful, you're aware, but you're willing to go forward. You just got to be smart about it. Fear, totally different. That's causes stuckness and you'll freeze.
That's interesting. I guess I never really thought about it that way. So it's okay to be scared,
all the time.
And because it raises your level of maybe intensity and awareness, but you can't fear.
Yeah, exactly. So every time I went flying, I was scared. Now it gets less the more you do, like anything in business and life. The more you do something, the better you get. But you should be alert. So the worst thing I can do is get complacent. If I get too comfortable doing something I shouldn't be comfortable doing, and I'm strapped in that jet, and I'm gonna take off, and I'm not alert and aware, bad thing. So I like that little bit of scared. I like the butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah,
I enjoy that.
Yeah, I get that. I've had that before, and it's actually raised my level of performance
nice.
by being that way.
Nice.
That's interesting. Okay, so John, there's a story that I've heard through a mutual friend that you and I have about you noticing that there was a maximum altitude guideline in the jet flight manual, and you decided to test it out. Okay. Yeah. So I heard that the maintenance crew had an issue with what you did. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Oh, yeah. Well, interesting that Stephen told you that story. I'd forgotten that. Here's what happened. I had done a test hop. I was with the Blue Angels. I was leaving. I was about to move on. In the Blues, you're only there for 3 years. You move to another fighter squadron. And I was the test pilot. And we had an engine problem with the number 2 jet. And the boss says, hey, Gucci, take this airplane airborne and do the test hop, which I do. And test hops are kind of fun. You take them airborne, and when there's an engine problem like that, you actually shut the engine down airborne, and you go through the relight procedures, and you kind of hope it relights. And they usually do. It's not a big deal, right? But so I land the jet, and I go walking into the boss, and I said, hey, boss, airplane's ready to go. Now it's met the highest specs the Navy has, test pilot specs. And he looked at me, and Walt, this only happened once in my entire life. He goes, Gucci, I don't have confidence in that airplane. We're going to be giving it to one of our junior pilots, and I know it's past the test hop specs, but I need you to take that airplane airborne one more time, and this time, ring it out. Now, ring it out in pilot speak means take it to the limit.
Right.
I'm going, how cool is this? Because you don't always get these orders, right? I mean, I got, a $40 million airplane. I got 10,000 pounds of fuel. I got orders to take it to the limit. Now, what limit do I want to push today? And at that point in my career, I had done lots of pushing the limits. As lead solo pilot with the Blue Angels, that's your job, maximum performance demonstrator. My job was to bend the jet, right? And I'd pulled, tons of G. One day I did 20 loops in a row just to see if I get myself sick. I'd flown through buildings. I had a ton of fun, right? But I'm walking out to the jet, and I'm going, well, what limit have I not pushed? And this is where the story kicks in. All of a sudden, it's one of these beautiful days. It's in Pensacola, Florida. The sun's out, blue sky, and a thought hits my head. How high? How high can this jet really go? Because in test pilot school, in the performance manual of the F-18, there's a graph, all right? And in that graph, for altitude, it said 50,000 plus. So I'm walking out. Yeah. I'm walking out to the jet going, I wonder what the plus sign means. Let's find out today. What the heck, So now to do this, you got to do what they call a Rutowski climb. It's almost like your last name, right? But it's called Rutowski, right? And he was the first one that really learned how to do this. So basically what you got to do is you ask for an unrestricted climb, you get supersonic. Now you get supersonic, you got to go over the water so you don't blow out all the windows. So Pensacola's on the beach. So boom, I hit the water. I've got clearance to unrestricted climb. And now, but I'm supersonic. Now what you do is you don't point the nose straight up because you'll run out of energy. You do a parabola. So I'm supersonic going through 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55, 56, 57. I start to see the curvature of the earth. And Walt, I got to tell you, when you see it for the first time, I mean, yeah, I've seen pictures of it, but when you see it with your own eyeballs, it just blows your mind. How precious this earth is, how thin that veil is up there. And basically it starts to go dark. I mean, I was not in space, but as you start to get to those areas, it starts to turn purple and you just realize how awesome the world is. So I got it up higher and faster than it's ever gone. And then I get the bright idea. Now you got to get out of there because the engines are shutting down. They actually did this movie in Top Gun Maverick. Remember the opening scenes? Did you see that movie?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's kind of the same theme, right? But I actually did it in real life, right? It wasn't just a movie. And basically the engines are shutting down because there's not enough oxygen up there. The F-18 engines aren't made to be up that altitude. So I got to get out of there. And I can watch the engines, even though I'm in full afterburner, they're shutting down, right? You can feel it go, woo, and I get the nose over and then I get the bright idea. How fast, Walt? If I know how high the jet can go, how fast? Because I got the highest potential energy. So I bullseye it. Bullseyes are you grab the stick with both hands. I point the nose straight down. So I'm coming out of the atmosphere, Mach 1.5, 1.56, 1.7,000 miles per hour, just screaming out of the atmosphere. And then the airplane starts to slow down. Now, this is blowing my mind. I know this because I'm strapped in, right? So I can start to get pushed forward in my straps. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Re-entry, full afterburner. What do you think is slowing the airplane down at that point?
I don't know. I don't know. Just lack of oxygen. I don't know.
It's not oxygen, but it is the air. It's density air, right? As you re-enter the atmosphere, as you get closer to the surface, sure. It's why you feel humidity. When you feel a hot summer day, you feel how thick the air feels. Same thing when you're re-entering, and the air can't go through the intakes. So even though that engine is spinning at 10,000 RPM, the air is actually becoming drag. It can't go through the engine fast enough. And that's when you know you've hit the limit. And it was fun. It was a fun day. That was just another day in the life.
Oh my gosh. And I heard the paint came off, didn't it?
Well, yeah, that's the problem. So what happens is, the story. So I run out of fuel. It only took me 10 minutes. I burned up all the fuel. So I land the jet, and my crew chief, who's always there for me, and we can talk about how powerful your team is and your crew chief, and he looks at me, and I climb out of the jet, and his name was Joe. And he goes, "Sir, what did you do?" And then I realize he's actually not looking at me. He's looking through me. So I turn around, I look at the jet. The paint is gone. Oh. I've actually melted the paint off the jet.
Oh my gosh.
It surprised me too. And then I said, "Joe, and he goes, I said, what, 57,000 feet, went over 1,000 miles per hour. He goes, cool. And then he said, "Don't worry, sir, I'll fix it for you." And they did. They repainted the whole airplane. And that's part of the glad to be here mindset. What he was really saying was, he goes, "I'm glad to be part of a team, an organization like this who can make great things happen." And, it took them, days, but they repainted the whole airplane.
Unbelievable. What a story, John. All right. So that's amazing. So I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit to, the business side of it a little bit, but you fly as a lead solo pilot, 500 miles an hour, just you're talking about 1,000 miles or whatever it is, and you're inches from your teammates when you're doing all this, whenever you're doing it with them, right?
Well, now you're not here. We'll get to the issue about closeness. You're not doing what I just did. That I did solo, right? But you're absolutely right. We're flying anywhere from about 500 miles per hour, usually down to around 400 knots. And how close do you think we fly when we're doing that?
Well, I heard 18 inches.
Yeah, it starts about 36 inches and we
Oh,
get
no.
better every day. And we measure ourselves just like in business. You know, you have your goals, your visions, and your metrics, and we can tell. And so we get it down to 18 inches towards the end of the year, which is just
That's amazing.
yeah,
So now you create what's called this diamond performance framework.
yeah.
Um, how is it that what you did informed you to create this framework? And tell us a little bit about the framework too.
Yeah. So it's off the book, Fearless Success. So after the Blue Angels, I went
By
back
the way,
into
it's right here.
Oh, there you
I just
go.
want everybody to see.
Well,
This is terrific.
here, turn it around and you'll see the framework. Yeah, there you go. So the framework is there. But let me tell you where this came from. So basically, after the Blues, you go back into the real Navy in a leadership role and flying jets off aircraft carriers. And, that's what we're there for, right? And I love that. Had a great experience. And then in my life, and I'm sure many of your listeners, you kind of got to reinvent yourself at some point. So I had really achieved what I wanted to in the flying in the Navy world. And I said, there's different worlds out there. My dad, he was a colonel in the Army and at Corps of Engineers, and then he got out and he became chairman of the board of all the water in California, Metropolitan. And he showed me kind of what your life was, that you could really lead at different levels, right? So I said, I think I want to do something like that. And I needed a bridge because I'd only done the Navy thing my initial life, and my bridge was school. So I went to Stanford Business School. I was fortunate to even get in. I mean, a knucklehead fighter pilot. Ended up getting 3 masters. Yeah, I was a Sloan Fellow, got 3 master's degrees. And all of a sudden, my world changed, right? Because it was that entrepreneurial world. And Walt, I got to be able to be honest with you, I couldn't even spell entrepreneur, but it sounded cool. It sounded like it's something that I wanted to do, right? And that was back in 97, 98. In Silicon Valley. You remember what was going on back then, right?
Sure.
And so anyhow, I got exposed to all that and decided that, well, I'll jump in that game. And so I was fortunate. There was a firm picked me up and, did a little about the VC stuff right around 2000, 2001. And what happened in Silicon Valley, 2000, 2001?
.com busted.
Yeah, the bubble burst, man.
Yep.
They call it the .com bubble, right? And so I'm on the inner circle of a venture capital firm who, by the way, was in the worst place you could ever be, early stage technology. So exactly where the bubble burst, right?
Yeah.
And I remember looking around that table that day. It wasn't just one day, but it happened kind of quick. And my partners and I are, looking around at each other, and we're trying to figure out what would happen. And it was and a thought hit my head. Walt, this is where it all started from. It was the how come question. But my how come question was not how come the bubble burst. I was asking this: how come some people outperform others and some don't? How come some teams consistently outperform? How come some companies like yours can consistently outperform the market no matter what the interest rates are, no matter what supply chain's doing to you, and some don't? And that question hit me, Walt, and I said, man, if we can figure this out, we can help a lot of teams, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations. That was 25 years ago. And I said, if I'm going to figure this out, I got to get out of the investment world. I got to get out of academia. I got to get into the real world with the real companies who are really doing it. So I started going around talking to CEOs like yourself. And you start to see what I call the red thread, right? You start to see, and I know you can see this easy, what's working, what's not. And and are you above the line or below the line? To me, that's your potential line as an organization. And you can sniff that out in a second, right? But anyhow, I started after years of doing that. I said, well, how am I going to pull this together? And I thought back to my time on the Blue Angels. And I said, wait a minute, here's an organization that consistently is the best in the world. If you want to define flying closer together and lower to the ground. They also, and that's the best teams around the world. There's other teams that have these, right? We do it with new people under changing conditions. Every day I'm in a different location. The weather changes. I'm flying over water some days, flying over land the next days. Half of my pilots, my executive team, are new every year. A third of my support team, all my troops, are new every year. By the way, that's called change management. We actually want new people in those jobs. So we're not firing them. They're just constant up and out, right? And all of a sudden I just reverse engineered it. I said, well, what worked there? Now I know that really well. I know the business world. How can I connect the dots? And it's basic strategic management theory. So you and I both know they'll teach us strategic management theory: vision, plan, execute, feedback loop. Okay, we all know that. The weakest link is usually the feedback loop.
Yeah,
that's what the Blue Angels, by the way, do better than any team or any organization in the world. So instead of doing that model, I said, wait a minute, what's the next level look like? And so if that model that you have on that book is, it starts with beliefs. If you notice, I don't use the word vision. What I use is beliefs, because what I found was it's our jobs as leaders to create beliefs. It's not about your vision. It's about getting people to buy in and connect to your vision.
Yeah.
So I start with beliefs, and then I say, well, what's limiting us and what's liberating us? Because there's certain beliefs that are holding you back, and there's certain beliefs that are letting you lead forward. Then I go into the cadence of execution, this cadence of brief, center point, debrief. So in the Blue Angels, like, I'll take companies through, how do we prepare? But not just prepare the company. How do you prepare your mind? The new book I got coming out is The Glad to Be Here Mindset, is all about how do you prepare your mind. It's passion. It's connecting passion with purpose and then being present in that moment, right? That's that center point alignment, getting everybody aligned. We execute through high trust. I found that was the key to execution, is high trust contracts. But the game changer is this Glad to Be Here debrief that the Blues do better than anybody else that connects the Glad to Be Here. And if you want, I can go deeper into that. But that's that model that you referred to.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the debrief part of it, because so many times in business, we execute, but then we don't step back and say, what could we have done differently? What could we have done better? Such a key part of it. But let's go there. Let's go to where you wanted to go. And that is this Glad to Be Here mindset.
Well, on that debrief, let me add that real quick, and we'll get into the mindset piece of it. Is I've noticed that in companies is everyone understands the concept, right? But usually what do? You only debrief when things go wrong, right? Yeah. And that's not, you got to do it then, of course, but that's not what I teach. See, I teach you got to have a cadence of execution. You want to use the debrief as a leadership tool. You want to identify what's working. You want to reinforce the connect, align, commit. I've always seen that in every high performance team. You got to connect as human beings. You got to align on the mission, and then you got to commit. And by the way, that third one, that's the differentiator, right?
Committed.
And so what I've used in the debrief is we take it away from your standard, what went well, what can we do better, what's the action steps we need to take. That's great. But we turn it into a leadership tool of where you building connection and alignment and commitment. And it has 5 dynamics to it. So tell me if you agree with these 5 dynamics. Number 1, we need a safe environment. And by a safe environment, I'm not just talking physical, I'm talking psychological safety. That's respect. So I need a room full of respect. Second thing I need to do is got to check my ego at the door. This is about the we, not the I. This is where humility and vulnerability come in. We hire for that, Walt. We don't hire for skill. I know skill. I can figure that out quickly. I hire for someone that has a thirst to learn, a thirst to grow, and more importantly, a thirst to give back, to mentor and train. And you know this in the leadership role. That's our job, right? So that's the second dynamic. The third dynamic is we got to lay it on the table. That means I want open and honest communication, no withholds. And we all know in business and life, what do you got? You got withholds all over the place. No way. We're going to lay it on the table. We're going to be open and honest. Now, sometimes that's difficult. The fourth one is the accountability piece, but I kind of flip that to personal responsibility. I call it my own it and fix it mentality. You got to own the outcome, not just your role. And that's the big thing in leadership, right? We all have roles, but we got to own the outcome. That's own it and fix it. And then the fifth one, and this is the game changer. So the first 4, I think we can agree with, these will work in business, right? You tell me, what do you think?
You mean the fifth one?
No, the 4. The first 4 I gave you.
I love
those resonate with you?
Safe environment.
Yeah.
check your ego. I love that. I love laying on the table, open and honesty, and I love accountability, owning it and fixing it.
Yeah.
But I want to know what's the fifth one?
So the magic. So if we just do those four, we're going to do great, right? But the magic is the fifth one, which is glad to be here. And glad to be here breaks into the science around generosity, the science around gratitude, the science around this thirst. I call it joyful effort. So that's the beauty. See, glad to be here then merges. It's two sides of the same coin. It's operational excellence with joyful effort. And when you can get those two to come together, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. So it's really your attitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your attitude, and having that attitude of gratitude mindset. Exactly. It's so critical in success in an organization. And I bring it, and a lot of that is in your hiring too. You better be hiring people that have that mindset, right?
Well, that's what you want. You know, we can dive into hiring if you want. It takes about a year for us to go through the process of hiring an executive team member, a Blue Angel pilot. And that's a minimum. Sometimes it takes 2 and 3 years because you usually don't get in on your first try. But we're trying to find out what's in someone's heart, not what's in their head. Because what I've learned is the teammates I want around, they've got to be aligned in the heart, right? And then we got to connect the head. You got to connect the heart and the head. And if you can find that out, that's the teammate we want.
That is so true. I mean, this is awesome, John. Can we switch gears a little bit to giving back? I mean,
please.
You're talking about giving back. I want to talk a little bit about the Glad to Be Here Foundation.
Yeah.
You've donated significant sums of money to charities worldwide. Can we explore that a little bit about just what inspired you to build philanthropy into this mission, and kind of how has giving back shaped your own leadership journey?
Well, thanks, Walt, for even asking that. Number one, it didn't happen quickly. I thought it would. My thing was, hey, I know it's important to give back, but I wasn't making a lot of money. You don't make a lot of money being in the military, right? And I said, well, someday, hopefully we can make a lot of money and we can start giving back. And guess what? It wasn't happening that fast. Okay. And then so I changed my mindset. I said, no, wait a minute. I'm going to start today. And so my wife and I came up with this model. And basically what we said was, we're going to give 10% to charity off the top, right? It's not a new thing, all right? I mean, the idea of can you give forward? So it was easy for me because it wasn't like I didn't feel guilty. Oh, I have to give $10,000 from money that I don't have. No, it was always future revenue. So my wife and I started a Glad to Be Here Foundation. The company now, we give 10% of all our fees to charity. So if you were to hire me or somebody were to hire me, after we go through the alignment, we make sure it's the right process and it's going to fit. Then I say, oh, by the way, guess what? 10% is going to go to charity. And guess what? You get to pick. You get to pick where some of that goes. And all of a sudden, Walt, you and I both know in business, people care, right? And there's so many businesses out there that have deep connections into the charities. So while we have 5 that we vetted and support, we actually have donated over to 350 charities around the world because of people like you who go, hey, we like Doctors Without Borders. Oh, we have this special charity for our team members, and all of a sudden you start to see how many people are out there doing good things in the world. And Walt, we started that maybe 15 years ago, and it's changed everything. On how you see. And oh, by the way, revenues went off the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it, as you say, it does start a bit with an attitude of gratitude, but your gratitude increases the more you give away. It's just amazing, right? That's cool. I think, I don't know what it is, but it's sort of like the more you give, the more you get. At least that's been my experience with it all.
Well, it's one of those things that spiritually, there's lots of texts about giving, and it does say, try it, right? And I did, and it does work. The more you give, the more you do connect, and all of a sudden all these doors start opening. But that's not why I do it.
No,
I do it,
right. I agree.
Yeah, you do it because you just know in your heart that you're helping somebody.
And somehow, though, it even changes your heart more.
Oh, I like
just, your heart's already there, and it just makes it even better. At least that's been my experience. I am so delighted to hear that. And I think too often we get caught up in sort of our own thing, let's just say. And I think to the extent that we can expand our aperture to those around us and notice that there's a lot of people around us that are hurting, I think it certainly warms the soul.
Well, I just got a call last night. A good buddy of mine from the St. Vincent de Paul in St. Louis. His name is Joe, and he's on his deathbed. Unfortunately, I mean, he's passing. He's probably one of the kindest, most. I call him an angel out there in the world because he works in the inner city of East St. Louis, and he started a food bank, but also a shelter. And I was just with him last month. And down where you boots on the ground. Now, I think, the giving, that's the easy part. It's the people who are actually doing it, right?
Yeah.
Who are doing that. And when you see the goodness and the kindness that is being generated, it just warms your heart.
Cool.
So I'll be going out St. Louis in 2 weeks to see him one more time. But it's people like that you get exposed to that you feel good about the world.
Can't agree with you more. Well said. Well, listen, I want to end the podcast by just asking you a question that I ask all my guests. And
Sure.
That's actually very apropos relative to what you just said. And that's about purpose.
Yeah.
I'm asking all my guests this year about purpose. And your entire philosophy is really built on being present and purposeful.
Yeah.
And so is there a single purpose that you're most passionate about pursuing today?
Well, I love the question and the way that I like to approach that. And by the way, I'm going into retreat here in 3 days to work even more on this, to quiet your mind so you can even work deeper on it. I like the I am statement. I remember and I do this with a lot of the workshops I do, is I ask people to come up with their own I am statement. And basically it's very simple. I am blank. And guess what? You get to fill in the rest, right? And you watch what words people choose after that, right? And it really will give you an insight to their purpose. So I'll give you mine real quick, and then you'll see what the purpose is. But I say I am an angel. And the reason I picked the word angel is not because I happen to be a blue angel. That's just ironic, okay? It's because I was doing some research on angels and wisdom. I have this thirst for wisdom, right? And it turns out an angel has 5 qualities. An angel is a messenger. An angel gives guidance. An angel protects. An angel is a warrior. And above all else, an angel serves others. When I heard that, it just leapt, the page, it came out. I said, that's it. I'm in. That's what I want to be. So it's a one-word answer. Now, then I've added to it where the purpose is, okay, well, so I'm an angel, and then this is it. I live and give life in all its fullness. So that's my purpose, to live and give life in all its fullness.
That is really profound, I got to tell you. I've heard a lot of good ones. That may be the best. That is unbelievable. I am an angel. But you know why you're an angel? There's these 5 reasons. That is just, we're going to do a blog on that or something. That's just too good. Oh my gosh.
Do it. Get the word out there. And then have everybody come up with their own I am statement.
Amen. Well, hey, John, I just want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Off the Rak. I mean, you've been absolutely terrific. I'm so grateful to you. And, thanks for just, sharing everything on your heart with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks for doing what you're doing. You're making a difference in a lot of people's lives. I'll give you one quick tool, if that's okay. Can I give your audience a quick tool?
You can.
So I do it every morning. I did it this morning. It's called my Glad to Be Here Wake Up. All right. And very simply, what I do is the minute I wake up, I just check the first conscious thought that hits my head. And I just observe. And I say, is it a happy thought? Or is it a suffering thought? You watch, just check your own mind, okay? Is it like, okay, what's the next email I got to check? What's the next problem I have? Or What am I grateful for? So I train my brain. If it's a negative thought, I just put it in the back of my head. I call it compartmentalization. I say, you know what? I'll get to you later. And I just go right to this. 3 things that I'm grateful for in the present moment, right? Just, waking up today, I'm in Sun Valley. It was a beautiful day, waking up with my doggies cuddled up in bed, my wife, whatever, for your health. I mean, it doesn't matter, just something you're grateful for. But then here's the technique. Go back 24 hours. Go back to yesterday, Walt. So tomorrow I'm going to do this and I'm going to think about today. And I'm going to think about you and I'm going to think about the podcast. I'm going to bring back the image of something joyful. So just go back and say, what happened yesterday you have joyful about? Then here's the last thing. And this is for leaders. Go forward in your day. Go forward in your day, think of others, and then set your intention. How do you want to show up today? So today I said, I want to show up present. I want to show up powerful. I want to show up peaceful. And that's it. That's my job.
That is really, I want to show up powerful, because that is powerful what you just said. I got to tell you, John, what you had to say is just so helpful and so profound. All I can say is I can't wait to go back and listen to the rerun of it, to be honest. You said some awesome things. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Keep it alive, man. Glad to be here. Really appreciate being here.
Thank you. And also I'd like to just say thanks to everybody who tuned in today. You can always find more insights from our guests in Off the Rak Plus newsletter, and we're going to highlight episodes, sneak peeks, takeaways, you name it, in that newsletter. And follow Off the Rak on your favorite podcast platform as well. Leave a review, share this episode with someone who needs a little purpose-filled inspiration. And man, we got a lot of it today. Until next time, I just encourage all of you to be human with one another and find a way to have a positive influence on somebody around you each and every day, just like John said. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.